So welcome everybody that's joined us. Very excited to have you guys back with us today. I think on our session number 2. I did send an email out yesterday on the recordings from last week. If you missed it, it was a great workshop that we went through last week on market steers. Excited to have this one on market swine. So we're pretty excited to have this going on. So one thing that I did send out an email yesterday, and in there was how to join livestockjudging.com. So it's not as easy as I thought it was. But if you go into livestockjudging.com, and it was in the email I sent yesterday, and I will send it back out tomorrow when I get this recording. Hopefully the recording will go up tomorrow. But if you go into livestockjudging.com, you sign up. All right. Basically, you got to create a username and password. You don't need to pay for anything. Don't pay for anything. It's free. Once you've signed up, then visit livestockjudging.com/code and hit the code FV8Z, and I'll put that all in an email. All right. And that will give you into the classes that I sent. I did send out a market steer class out earlier yesterday. So if you haven't gotten it, I will resend it and add you guys so that you can practice some classes in there. So pretty excited to have that as an opportunity. So if you want to do the judging classes in between, feel free to do that. I am going to stop share, and I'm going to actually turn it over to Rylan. So Rylan, it's all yours. And if you want to just do a quick introduction of yourself again, I think there's some new ones on and some different ones.
Alrighty, folks. As Brian said, my name is Rylan Loudon. Hail here from Southwest Kansas. So on last year, you kind of heard my spiel on who I am and everything, but kind of just a quick overview. Grew up raising livestock of all species. My primary focus was swine, had the most success in that and everything else. But yeah, today I've had some experience coaching some different 4-H livestock judging teams over the years now out here in Southwest Kansas. I work with quite a few youth in the area just with their livestock projects and stuff like that. I really enjoy just working with youth. Currently, I work as a life science and ag teacher. Exciting news on that front. We just got our batch of duck eggs in. We got them in the incubator today, so that was really fun. But yeah, big advocate for hands-on learning and letting kids have the time to experience things. And I think there's no better way to learn hands-on about livestock than learning how to evaluate them, especially if you can in person and whatnot. So you can see here my cat. This is Pendleton, my little orange kitty up there. He decided to join us tonight. So if you like cats, he's probably going to be sitting here not doing anything but hanging out. But so he just wanted to join us tonight. So like I said, let's go ahead and get started. So last week we talked about market steers, okay? And those of you that were here last week, we kind of used the chat feature a little bit, and kind of the format of everything that we'd had last week will be very similar. So I see we got a couple that already knew how to use the chat feature earlier. I think there was just some conversation about rabbits that maybe we weren't quite sure we're going to pick up on and everything, but I will say I do enjoy eating rabbit, so I appreciate the conversation about meat rabbits. I think rabbit is very delicious. And as Brian mentioned there in the chat feature, make sure you have a paper and pencil, something to write with. It's going to be really important tonight, okay? So first thing I want to know, we talked about market cattle and stuff. So what was the big main thing we had to focus on? What was our most important thing with market cattle? Go ahead and put there in the chat box. What was the most important thing with market cattle? Okay, I'm seeing meat, muscle, build, finish, cover. Okay, excellent. People are really hitting the two main ones, okay? We got to have muscle, we got to have finish, all right? So at the end of the day, if our cattle don't have meat, don't have muscle on them, they're not going to have meats. They're not going to have a good carcass on them, okay? And something we really saw, especially in our first class when we judged some cattle, we had a steer that had some muscle but didn't have enough finish to him. So in basically finish, we talked about his fat cover, okay? And we look at a couple different spots to find that. So again, if you missed that last week, Brian can definitely hook you up and be able to get you to see and view everything we talked about last week with market cattle. But that's exactly right. So muscle and finish, two really big components. Some folks mentioned in there their build and their structure. Absolutely. Those are also very key parts. When you talk about the whole animal as a whole, that's definitely important. When it comes to market livestock, truly our main priority and first focus is that an animal that has enough product and enough meat and muscle to it? So when it comes to hogs, what do you think we're going to be looking for with market hogs? Same kind of things. All right. So dive there in the chat box. Tell me, where am I going to look for muscle on a market hog? Again, where am I going to look for muscle on a market hog? Okay, very good. Folks are jumping right in with some different words and stuff that they know. And I appreciate it. It's always good to see people using the vocabulary and, the vocabulary that they know. So I've got people saying butt, people saying top line, ribs, everything like that. Ham, absolutely. So ultimately, just like with cattle, we're going to look for that big muscle up there over their top and from behind. Okay. Those are going to be our two big indicators of how much muscle a hog's going to have. Okay. Because again, someone put on there their ham. Absolutely right. So again, looking from the rear, that's going to be where we get our ham. Okay. And I love ham, big Christmas ham kind of guy, but also making sure that we've got plenty of muscle and stuff up over the top. Okay. That's really, really important as well. All right. So, but different from cattle, before we talked about cattle needed to be finished. Okay. Remember, finish is going to be fat. Now, hogs, totally flip it. All right. We want our hogs to be lean. Okay. We like lean muscle when it comes to hogs. All right. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and dive right in. So if you haven't already, go ahead and set up your note sheet like I did before. So I've got market hogs written up top, and I've got my numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, market hogs. It's going to be our first class. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and then make sure you leave a spot for your placings. All right. So if you haven't done that already, make sure you go ahead and get that done. Okay, next thing I didn't mention last class, and I knew you were going to have some time talking about intros and stuff and getting things rock and rolling, so I didn't want to overwhelm you with too much information, but I'll tell you tonight too, if you are someone that is in a division that's giving reasons, okay, maybe that's something Brian and I can talk about here in the future, doing a kind of a session on giving reasons or questions and stuff, but you want to start getting in the habit of leaving room there on your steno or your notebook that you got to set it up for reasons. So I always like to use this format. So again, this is probably going to be backwards from you guys, but basically I like to take it and divide it in one line down the middle, okay? And then I'm going to have 3 rows here, okay? So if you're a fractions kid, okay, I used to teach 3rd grade actually, and I always told them, remember, 1 less of the lines you're trying to make, right? Of the number of rows or slots you're trying to make. So you're going to do 3 rows, okay? And then what would be on going to be your, I think, left, okay, right here. You're going to leave those bigger, okay? The reason you're going to leave those bigger is because that's where you're going to talk about your the winner of that pair, okay? Because we have 4 animals in a class. So we're going to have a top pair, a middle pair, and a bottom pair, okay? So you're going to make sure to leave some room up there. And then I like to split the other sides, okay? Again, this is how I do it. Other folks can do it in a tic-tac fashion, tic-tac-toe, or you've got 3, 3, 3, whatever you want to do. But just go ahead and start getting in that habit of just setting it up like that, because then you're just going to know, hey, I got to leave room to write my notes for my reasons. I'll be able to rock and roll with that. Okay, so moving forward, that's how I recommend it. If you just want to write your 1, 2, 3, 4 for now, totally okay. I understand everyone's at a different level here, all right? Okay, here we go. So let's dive right in. All right. Gonna share my screen here. Perfect. All right, here we go. So market hogs 1. All right. So again, big main focus for us. You got to have muscle, but then hogs are got to have some leanness. So just like last time, I'll talk you through a little bit of the class, kind of talking you through each individual. We're gonna have 3 classes we're gonna look at tonight. So we're gonna rock and roll with it here. Okay. So here we go. All right. Sorry, my cat's making noise back there. Okay, number 1. Okay. Now, before I even start to think, okay, well, I like this pig, blah, 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 hogs are different. Okay, cattle, we had to give them some kind of ID. Okay, so last time we did, excuse me, we did color. Okay, so there in the chat box, I want you to tell me what kind of IDs might we use for hogs. There's two main ones. Go ahead and dive in the chat box. I want you to see what you know. Two main ones there. Okay, see someone said belted gilt. Anyone have any other thoughts? What are our two main things we're gonna have to get an ID for in hogs? Ear tag. Ear notch. Very good. Okay. So the two main ones, especially for folks that are kind of just here in the beginner stage, I want you to tell me a color. Okay. And then I want you to tell me its gender. Okay. That's really, really, really important. So in market steers, everything's going to be a dude. Okay. It's going to be a steer. It's going to be a castrated male. In market hogs, especially, we tend to have a little bit of both. Okay. We tend to have market barras, and we tend to have market gilts. Okay. So a barra, if you aren't a big pig kid, a barra is going to be, just like we said before with steers, a castrated male. All right. And a gilt usually is just going to be a female and she's not had pigs yet. Okay. So here we go. First thing I'm going to write down, this is number one. Okay. Well, her color, I'm going to say belt. She's belted. Okay.
Number one is
First thing I
belted.
wrote down, she is belted. Okay. And if you're a pig kid, you might say, oh, well, that's a hamp. Okay. I will tell you, she may have a belt, but that doesn't always guarantee she's a hamp. So be careful trying to assign breeds to them. Okay.
Belted,
But I would say belted. All right. So go ahead and put belted. And then the next thing I'm going to say, well, is it a boy or a girl? Well, it's a girl. Okay. And always remember it this way: B for boy. So the barrows are boys. G for girl. The girls are gilts. Okay. Again, belted, gilt. All right. First thing I'm going to look at, I'm looking it up here, right here. Wow. Okay. She's got a great big old ham and hip on her, doesn't she? Okay. When we talk about lean muscle. So one, we know already, she's got a big ham, big hip. I like that. Talk about him being lean. Well, I can kind of see these streaks and these lines down her ham. That is a good thing. That absolutely means that she has muscle and she's lean in her muscle, or it's expressive. Okay. Next place I'm going to look down here, down her top. All right. Now with cattle, we talked about it. Okay. We got two big old ribeyes where our steaks sit right there on the spine, coming from the shoulder all the way back. Pigs are the same thing. So if anyone here is a big pork chop fan, right there, that's where all your pork chops are going to come from, right there. Okay. So when I can see, I've almost got kind of like this separation here. And if you're a livestock kid, you know what that is. Basically, that's talking about the groove and expression of muscle she's got down her top. So right away, I'm going to write down, first thing I'm going to write down, okay, she's got muscle. Okay, so she's heavy muscled and she's lean in her muscling. Okay, so I wrote down it's a belted gilt, she's lean, and she's got muscle. Okay, very good. She's belted gilt, she's lean and got muscle. Okay, all right. Now, next thing I was kind of looking at her, I'm like, okay, well, she's got some muscle. Okay, she's got some leanness. That's good. Okay, well, I want to make sure that she has enough room to put groceries in. Because think about it. When you eat, okay, especially if you're like me, when you eat a whole bunch, you're going to put on weight. Okay, and ultimately, when we get our pigs little, we want them to grow. We want them to get big. We want them to gain weight. Okay, so I'm going to really study her in her rib. Okay, hey, Miss Aubrey, I love that you're trying to engage us here in the chat and everything, but go ahead and just kind of save that. I'll ask you when I need you to jump in the chat there, okay? But kind of rocking and rolling through, thinking about it. Okay, let's talk about how much depth and how much rib this girl's got, okay? Does she have enough room where she's going to be able to take in a lot of groceries and convert that into muscle? Well, I would hope so. Okay, so I'm going to write down again. I'm going to say she's deep-bodied. Okay, she's deep-bodied. Okay, very good. All right, then So thinking about, so she's got muscle, she's got lean muscle, she's got lots of rib and body. Okay, that's awesome. Then I want to make sure that she's square. All right. Again, all livestock, if they're square and good at the ground, they're going to be able to move good. Okay. Well, let's look at her. When we talk about squareness in hogs, we want them to be level down their top, just like with cattle. And then we want them to kind of come down, have just kind of a comfortable way they set in here to their back leg and their front leg. Well, does she look like she's struggling? Look like she's really straight and super awkward? I wouldn't think so. I think she's pretty sound and pretty good in that. So I'm going to write down she's sound. She's sound. When I say sound, that means she's going to be able to get out, stretch, and move good. Okay. Perfect. All right. So right now, I think I like a lot of things about this pig. The belted gilt. She's got some lean muscle shape. She's got some rib and capacity there. And I think you get her out in the move, she's probably going to move pretty good. All right. So let's go ahead and move to the next one here. All right. Whoa. Very, very different. Okay. One of the first things I notice is this one's just kind of skinny looking. All right. But before I even get to that, before I talk about skinny, okay, chop there in the chat box. What color is he?
No, I need to listen to this. I thought it was supposed to be a sheet. I told you it's fixed.
Okay, I'm hearing pink, and it's a barrow. And Aubrey, I apologize. Good to know you are a he. Okay. Pink and a barrel. Okay, so what you're gonna know here, okay? Pink is not a color we use in hogs. Okay, it's white. Very good. It is white and a barrow. So I'm gonna write that down. I'm gonna write down white. I'm gonna write down barrow. Okay, right there. Boom. White and barrow. Excellent. Okay, got a white barrow. All right. Well, first thing let's look at muscle. Okay. Well, I'm studying this guy. I see some shape. Okay, he's got some size here in his ham, but it doesn't look like it goes very far. We talk about animals being dimensional, talking about them having a lot of width and taking that muscle and really stretching out and having great big. I just don't think there's a lot here. There's just not a lot of muscle. It doesn't go very deep. And I really set him here in his shoulder and his forearm. It's pretty plain looking. Okay, when I talk about it being plain, I mean it's not super expressive, super fun to look at and really study. There's just really not a lot of muscle here. Okay, I'll look up down his top. I don't think there's a whole lot going on. I think if I really had a view up over the top side, I don't think I'd really see a whole lot here. So I think he's kind of plain in his muscling. So I'm going to put he's light muscled, or I'm going to put he's plain muscled. Okay. And plain's kind of a fancier way to say it doesn't wow you. There's just not a lot there, not a lot to study. Okay. So again, I think this one's just kind of plain and light in his muscling. Okay. And then I study him for his rib shape. Well, that guy, I think definitely has some really shallow rib. Now, in certain species, we like some shallow rib. I don't like shallow rib in my hogs. Okay. I want them to take in a lot of groceries, convert into lean muscle. So I'm going to write down next, I'm going to say, you know, this guy's shallow. Okay. He's shallow ribbed. He just doesn't have a lot of depth to him. Okay. He gets kind of tight. And you see up here in his flank, I don't know, with market cattle, we had a lot of folks that were really good at pointing out, you know, maybe that steer's kind of tight up there in his flank, or he's not as soft, not as full. That's exactly right. Same thing here. He gets pretty tight up there in his flank. I'm just this kind of a skinny, shallow ribbed kind of guy. Okay. All right. And soundness. Woof. If you can see right here, guys, look at where his back foot is sitting in relation to his hock. Okay. And if you don't know a lot about livestock parts, the hock is basically going to be the knee of the back leg. Okay. Well, when you're walking, if you get your legs all straight out, first off, you're going to start walking like a penguin. It's not going to be very comfortable. Okay. And it's just not going to look right. This guy right here, I can tell you right now, he is very, very straight-legged. Okay, so I'd say he's very, very straight. Okay, I'm going to write down the word straight. And I'm even going to underline it because I think that's just so rough to look at there. Okay, he's just really hard in his muscle, in his structure there. I don't think he's going to move very good. Okay, now something we mentioned earlier, talking about muscle. Tell me, guys, do you think this guy is very lean? Does he look like he's got a lot of super expressive muscle shape? Tell me there in the chat. Do you think this guy's super lean, really ripped up in his muscle. Yeah, I'm seeing a resounding no. Guys, if anything, this guy doesn't have a lot of muscle and he's carrying quite a bit of cover to him. So if he's carrying quite a bit of cover, that's going to tell me not only is that a light muscled pig, but he's not very lean. So I'm going to say he's kind of fatter. Okay. If you really study him in comparison to our last pig, okay, that belted gilt, notice she's got some big old top in her, lots of expressive muscle shape. This guy, it's just plain. It's kind of hard to look at. There's just not a lot going on there. So already in my mind, remember we talked about this last week, okay, thinking about that one gilt, I'm like, I liked a lot of parts about her. I think that's one I maybe want to keep in the top pair. Okay, I think that's going to be more towards a class winning type. Then I get to this guy and I'm like, I just don't think this is going to be one that's going to have very many hogs that are going to be worse than him. I think he's going to be a little bit more down to the bottom pair. Okay, so here we go. Rolling on to our third one. Okay, so we got different, but a little bit the same features as comparison to our last one. So first off, tell me in the chat, what color is it? And is it a gilt or a barra? What color is it? And is it a gilt or a barra? See, someone said blue butt, right on. That's exactly right. We'd call this a blue butt. And yes, it is a gilt. Okay. Very good. This is a gilt. Now, something that not everyone always knows where to look. Okay. So looking up here on the underline, okay, right here on the underline, so right there in kind of that belly spot. Okay. So when you study that, you got to understand. Well, the barrows have nipples, or the barrows have teats too, right? Well, I always teach my kids, you can't rely on looking at the teats to be able to tell if it's a boy or a girl. Because think about it, I'm a boy, but I still have nipples, okay? I still got teats, but you've got to study them. And so something that we saw in the last hog, he has this little thing right here that's called a sheath, okay? He's got a sheath. So he's got a sheath, so that's a boy. This one, no sheath. And this one's kind of hard to tell, but back here, there's this little bitty thing. That's called her vulva. Okay. So a gilt's going to have a vulva and no sheath. Okay. A barra is going to have no vulva and he's got a sheath. Okay. Very good. So next thing we talk about, go ahead and think about her muscling. Man, that one's got a great big old hip. I'm going to write that down. She's got a really big hip. Okay. She's got a lot of muscle there from behind. I would definitely say that one's got a lot of muscle there from behind. It's big. Okay. Absolutely right. Okay. Now, all right, looking through, studying here. Okay. I look up here in her shoulder. Okay. She's got a pretty big forearm here. All right. Now, remember, I said really studying over the top and from behind, but looking at them here on the shoulder is a good spot to look for meat too, because that's where we get a lot of our roasts. Okay, so if you like a pot roast or a pork roast, pork shoulder, delicious right in there. So she's got quite a bit of expression, quite a bit of size and shape there. I think she's probably got plenty of top up in her, but man, that hip's nice and big. So I'm going to say, this one's got some muscle. She's got a big hip, and she's heavy muscled. Now, she maybe doesn't blow me away with the amount of muscle she's got, but she's certainly got more than that bear ahead of her. Okay, very good. That number 2 bear. All right, now I'm going to look at her and study her rib shape. Ugh. She runs into some pretty rough stuff, kind of like that bear did. So it's going to be, I'm going to write down, she's really shallow ribbed. And I don't really like that. Okay, super shallow ribbed. All right, and then if I study her structure, yikes. I think we're falling into some real similar pieces as the barrel we just had earlier. I think that's just one that's super straight-legged. Really set the shoulder there, going straight from the blade, straight down to the ground. And you can kind of see your toes turning out quite a bit. And if you're a cattle guy, sure, we're going to give We're going to give a little bit to our market cattle, especially those clubby steers. They're going to turn out a little bit. But I mean, I'm the same way. My feet turn out a little bit. But this girl has them turned way out, and that's kind of rough. So I'm a little bit concerned about her structure. Not only is she really straight-legged, and I'm going to make a point of that, okay? but she's also just kind of she's really tight. Okay, she's really tight in her structure. So I know this one's got lots of muscle. She's really lean, but she's also really tight structured. Okay. Now you kind of tend to see that sometimes. So with some pigs that are really focused on just having a really, really lean muscle, really lean carcass, you're going to have some good muscle traits, some good terminal traits there. But we talk about one that she's so extreme in her muscle pattern, on her leanness, it works to her detriment. Okay. So those of you that don't know what that word means, that basically means kind of works against her. So it's kind of turns out to be a bad thing. Okay. So again, one, super, super heavy there from her behind, really impressive there in the lean muscle shape she's carrying, but she's really, really shallow and super straight off both ends of her skeleton. Get that one on the move, and she's probably going to be walking around like a penguin. Okay, like she's got some post legs. All right, so here we go. Finish up your notes on that, and then we're going to roll on to number 4. Roll on to number 4. And if you're a parent in here and you used to show hogs, you maybe think, well, that used to be pretty darn good. Well, that's what it used to be. Pigs are notorious for flipping and flopping back and forth between trends and trades and all sorts of stuff. All righty, here we go. Got our number 4 pig. All right, first off, gotta tell yourself, let's figure out a color. Is it a gilt or a barra? So go ahead and jump in the chat there. What color would you call this one? Is he a gilt or a barra? Hey, a lot of folks, again, we're saying it's another white barra. Okay. And I'm fully aware. Good. Someone jumped in right there. He's really weak pasture, and we'll make note of that later. Okay, very good. But yes, notice I'm saying barra. Technically it's
Yes,
barrow, but we just kind of get in a little bit of a habit of talking a little bit with a bit of a twang in our voice here in the Midwest when we talk about livestock. So that's why I call him a barra. All right. But again, it is a barrow. That is the same thing. So just to clarify there. But again, right off the bat, okay, another white barra. Sure, he's got some spots up there on the crest of his head. You can maybe note that. But overall, again, he's white. That's kind of where I'm going to leave it. It's another white barra. Okay, so here we go. Let's rock and roll. Really, I see a lot of folks kind of starting to really break this guy down for a structure. But let's go ahead and look at him from a carcass standpoint first. Okay, again, how much muscle? Because these are hogs that are market ready, ready to go. We're going to process them tomorrow. Who's going to have the best carcass? Well, right away, I think this guy's got quite a bit of muscle to him. Okay, I'm going to write down there. He's heavy muscled. Okay. As far as muscle, shape, and kind, he's really got a lot of similar things going on comparison to that belted gilt that we had up first. Okay. Again, going to have a lot of muscle here. He's got plenty of hip. It looks pretty lean. I see those lines of expression like I talked about earlier. He's got that groove going down his back there from his blade all the way back through to his hip. He's got a really expressive muscle shape there. I really like a lot of things about his muscle. So he's got muscle. We talked about, so he's heavy muscle. And I would say this guy's also lean. Okay, he's got some lean muscle shape there working on the top side of his skeleton. Definitely as he would walk away from me, I think that's one that's going to have quite a bit of product, and it's going to be very quality, the product he's going to be giving you. Okay. All right, next thing we'll look at. This guy's got some rib. Okay. He is super, super soft-sided. Going to be a really, really easy feeder. Okay, when I talk about a pig from the get-go that I want to kind of keep or put in my barn, one that's got some width and just a really soft-sided look to him. I like to feed pigs that don't cost me an arm and a leg to feed. Okay, ones that aren't going to take a whole bunch of extra stuff to really get up and going, but I think this is definitely a good kind of hog. Okay, again, lots of hip, lots of power. Okay, going to be rolling with plenty of body. So he's also going to be soft-sided. Okay, I'm going to say he's deep-ribbed. Okay. Something I want to note, though, a lot of folks get kind of caught up in the normal terms of saying, well, he's got a big belly. I don't want to say a big belly. I want to sound smart. Okay, livestock evaluators, we like to sound pretty smart and really sound like we know what we're saying. We know what we're talking about. So I like to say he's a soft-sided or he's softer ribbed. Okay, or he's just deep ribbed. Absolutely. Okay, very good. Now, things that everyone was commenting in on. I love that we jumped right into structure. Okay, when it comes to hogs, I refuse to buy a hog that is super wheat pastern or super straight on his legs right from the get-go when they're between, that 50 to 90 pound range. I'm like, nope, because what those things will do, they're only going to get worse as they get older. Okay, so this guy, absolutely, that's a point to make. He's soft on his pasterns. Okay. So again, if you don't know hog terms or livestock terms, as far as parts go, the pasterns are going to be right here, kind of like your wrist. Okay, so if you were walking around on all fours, going to be on your knees and your wrists, you want to make sure that's nice and strong. Okay, I don't want to be quite up on my tippy toes. Because that, I apologize, folks. I need more sleep, but not going to be right up there on his tippy toes because that's going to hurt too. Okay. But he's too soft on his pasterns. All right. We want one that's going to be able to get out and motor good. But other than that, being soft on his pasterns, someone mentioned his back legs kind of fell out a little bit. Okay. I would agree. Okay. They kind of turn out just a tick. But overall, I think this guy's pretty well built. Okay. He's got a good set to his head. He's got a real level top. Sure, I'd make him a little bit leveler and longer there out of his hip, but those are pretty critical things. All right. You guys are kind of jumping in a little bit and feeling like you're good hog evaluators, which is awesome. Saw someone jumped on there and kind of mentioned something about his neck. Okay, absolutely. One of the first spots to look on whether a hog is done, okay, up here in their neck. This guy, I will be the first to admit, he is chuffy. Okay, it's one of my favorite words to use. He's chuffy. So I'm going to make note of that. He's chuffy. Or I'm just going to say he's got some condition or some fat up there in his neck. Okay. And up there in the neck, what we call, so that's actually got some meat up there, that cheek meat. We call that the jowl. Okay. The jowl. So again, he's got some fat up here in his jowl, and I'll definitely note that for sure. Okay. So he's carrying a little bit more condition than maybe another hog, but he's got some kind of a coarser look to his front and there through his neck. Someone mentioned that earlier. I love that term. Talking about being a little bit coarser. Okay, but I'm going to go ahead and go through them all again. Let you make some final notes about some stuff to help you kind of rock and roll, make a final decision on your placing. But already I kind of have two I have in mind that I think have the most to them. Probably just the most complete, check the most boxes for me. And then two that I think really need some work, but I'm not sure there's a lot we can do for them at this stage in the game. So again, number one, our belted gilt, we said she had plenty of muscle. Plenty of power. She's got some really deep, soft-sided rib there. Appreciate that about her. As far as her skeletal build goes, I'd definitely say that one's sound. I'll talk about one being a little bit more up on her toes. She's got it right here. If you can read through the grass there, she's not going to be lay down on her pasterns there, but she's doing a good job. I like a lot of things about her. I think that's a good one. Definitely going to keep her up in my top pair. Okay. I'm going to roll on. I got this old boy. Please tell me I don't got to look at this guy very long. He's just hard for me to look at. Which should tell you a little bit of how I feel about him. So again, the white Barra, okay, the white Barra, one of the white bears. And so again, we talked about him being really kind of light muscled. He's got some really plain muscle shape. There's just not a lot to him. And then on top of it, he just doesn't have an immense amount of look and everything to him. And he's kind of struggling a little bit. Got some poor structure there, okay?
Rylan, can I just ask a quick question on this one? And I'm just gonna end this. I think there's a few other educators or parents that are on here that are experienced in this. So if I look at him, he looks like a typical pig for me in New York, right? Like a typical pig that's not being a show pig. It's not gonna be a show pig, but it's one that's going right to the freezer, right? Like if you look at him, that's what I see a lot of him. He's just a generic run-of-the-mill type of a pig.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. As far as if that's what you got, and I'll be honest, I've judged classes and as a competing livestock judge, as well as classes that I've judged at a fair or something, that I have a class of these or quite a few of these. And what I'll tell you is sometimes, so when you get into that situation where they all kind of look the same, they all kind of look like just kind of a run-of-the-mill pig, don't have a lot of look, don't have a lot of expression. Take it back to the basics. Which one has the most muscle? Which one has the most with some leanness to it? Is there one in there that does have some different, some softer sided looks, some little bit of rib to them and stuff like that? Okay. Again, I think that's perfectly acceptable. I appreciate you bringing that up, Brian. You run into that here in Kansas too. Okay.
I
It's
think
not-
actually Macy just wrote in there he's a commodity pig, and she's probably right on.
Yep.
Right? Like he's
that is
just
a perfect way to describe him.
right.
Yep, absolutely right. So again, but for me, with a class of this quality, with some other pigs in here that really just kind of stand out, I think this is one that's going to be a little bit on the lower side for me here, okay? And then rocking and rolling on the 3 pig. Again, one that I think's got quite a bit of, you get the blue butt gilt. She's got a lot of muscle here. We really appreciate how lean that muscle shape is. But again, that's probably the only plus we kind of found on her. We're struggling a little bit here to find some good pieces with how shallow rib she is. She gets a bit too hard. She wants to roach up there in her top a little, quite a bit. Just not one that I think I can tie into from a structural standpoint. But again, I appreciate the lean muscle shape this one's carrying, okay? Things to note there. And then finally, our other white bear. Again, another powerfully constructed one who's got plenty of width on dimension. Like a lot of things about him there. He gives you a soft-sided, easy feeding kind of look, and I appreciate a lot of that. I do think he gets a little bit softer there in his pasterns. Wants to get a little bit chuffier there through his neck, all right? So my laptoping for me, it doesn't have enough juice to get through the night. So go ahead and write down your final placings for this class. Again, write down your final placings, and then I'll reveal my overall final, and then I'll be right back. I got to go run and go get my charger. Don't want us to sit here and fall down. Perfect. Everyone's jumping over the placings. Again, I'll be right back.
So as we're waiting for Rylan, I see a lot of 1-4-3-2s, a lot some 1-4-2-3s, right? Don't be afraid to put it out there, right? Like this is what we're here is to learn and to see how everybody agrees, disagrees, right? You're the official judge for this when you're looking at these classes. Right? That's the one thing to remember is on that. Lots of 1-4-3-2s. I see a couple of 4-1s. So when we're looking at this, I see a lot of, so we've kind of got 2 pairs here. You've got your 1 and 4s and your 3s and 2s that are kind of sticking together. And I think a lot of people are getting that in there. Right. And, you know, that's the nice part about judging. When you're doing reasons, you got to be able to explain yourself one way or the other. If you think the 1's better than 4 or 4 is better than 1, be to explain yourself. Sorry, Ron, all you. I'm trying to fake it to make it.
You're doing great, Brian. Chloe, do you got a question there? You got your hand raised.
Yeah, so sometimes I just wanted to make like a statement. Sometimes you can't really go based off the picture. Sometimes you need to like see the animal in person. So I'm not really saying that you're wrong, but I'm saying that sometimes you need to see the animal in person to judge it better.
Chloe, you're exactly right. Okay. And that's why what's kind of nice, the last class we're going to look at today, I kind of like last time we had a video and stuff to really judge some animals and kind of see them on the move. I have one of those to round out our class today, but you're exactly right. But I still stand pretty firm behind my placing here. So again, I'm going to go ahead and start it with the 1 gilt. Okay. I think it's a pretty clear start. That's a pretty neat one. That's got a lot of neat pieces. Not only as a market hog, but that's one that I think too. You wanted to take her and put her in a farrowing crate. She's going to have a lot of success for you as a breeding gilt as well. So again, a very dual purpose type pig to start us off. That belted gilt's got an immense amount of power and dimension there from behind, carrying a lot of turn and curvature there to the top side of her skeleton. Gives you a soft, easy feeding kind of look. I like to trim her up here, up through her, there through her neck and her jowl. And again, but I think one that I think's built square, built right, and has all the pieces that I need to be a successful market hog with a profitable carcass. Okay. The one that follows her, and this is a fun term to be able to use in type and kind. Okay. One that's going to be very similar is going to be the 4-bear. All right. Again, I think another combination type pig who combines muscle with leanness quite well for a market hog. For me, he just kind of falls short and being a little bit coarser there through his neck. Carrying a bit more too much chuff there through his front. Just wants to get a little bit weaker there on his pastern. So one that I think is going to be just a little bit softer there through his build, through his front legs. But again, I think a quality type hog who definitely takes the cake in comparison to the one that's going to come out there in 3rd. So for me, the one's going to be here in 3rd. One, again, I think definitely has the advantage in terms of lean muscle shape. She's got plenty of tightness there, excuse me, trimness there from end to end there in her skeleton. But unfortunately, like I mentioned earlier, works to her detriment. This is just one that's too hard in her type and kind. Again, really lean, but one that's just too shallow and tight up there through her rib. And again, one that I think just gets too straight off both ends of her skeleton. So again, kind of a structural issue and one that I think just needs not going to be able to put on the weight on a positive way enough for me. But she still has better things going on than I think this kind of plainer bear here in fourth. Okay, that other white bear again, I think you guys mentioned he's a commodity pig. All right, one that's going to get the job done. He's going to have enough muscle to give you a profitable carcass, but not quite going to carry enough with some extra look and pizzazz, and just also being a square made, sound constructed kind of hog. And I think he's just kind of plain in his design. Like I mentioned, like you guys mentioned earlier, he's definitely one that's going to get the job done. He's going to weigh enough, going to have enough power and muscle to him. But when I talk about being competitive or having one that really gives you some extra wow and pizzazz, just to really get one that's impressive, you want to see more to backdrop, this guy's just not it. So just a little bit too straight there on both ends of his skeleton. Just needs a bit more power and a bit more, just simply more to it. Okay. So again, your final placings for this class are going to be 1, 4, 3, 2, with cuts of 2, 7, and 2. So again, if you flip that top pair, you're only going to lose 2 points. So again, those of you that were with us last week, we had every class is out of 50 points. And as we rock and roll into some things, we're kind of like, all right, cool. We've got some stuff where we're going to lose 2 points there because we started 4. So you're going to get a 48. Or if you flip the bottom, you thought maybe that plainer looking bear, you liked that he had a little bit more fat cover to him, but it wasn't quite as tight. Maybe in his overall build, you're only going to drop 2 there. But big thing to notice here, guys, there's a 7-point cut here in the middle. That's something I really want you to understand and really study here, is the fact that, oof, that was rough. Okay. That 7-point cut. So if you got either of these pigs here in the top pair, that's going to hurt you pretty good. Okay. So again, when we talk about types in kind, you know, this is absolutely what we want to see. This is also what we want to see. These are kind of harder to look at and evaluate. Okay. And again, Brian mentioned, you know, kind of a commodity hog, kind of a run-of-the-mill pig that we're going to have there in New York. That's quite all right. We just want to make sure, maybe if we really want to and get out and be competitive, have one that's got a little bit more to it, looking a little bit more like her. Okay. But again, nice class. So we're going to rock and roll. So taking those things we've learned and we understand, we're going to move on to market hogs number 2. So again, anyone got any questions for me? Kind of rocking and rolling with some stuff. There we go. Perfect. Any questions we're going to throw there in the chat box? How am I doing so far on pace? Are we doing good? Folks understanding good? So far, so good. We'll take it, Stacy. All right, well, let's move right along. Okay, so moving on to our next class here. Okay, so I rock and roll. So I've got that first pig here. Okay, moving on along. Okay. All right, now I'm going to have market hogs number 2. So again, set up my class. I apologize. My dog thinks he's a big bad boy. He's just a fluffy poodle. He doesn't know anything. All right, very good. Set up my placings, or my spots, put in my placings. List out 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to go ahead and draw my line to half it. Okay. Rock and roll with some things. Okay. So again, like last time, we set it up and then I'm going to let you guys get some time to kind of evaluate and study a little bit. And then I'll kind of give you some pointers and some things to rock and roll through. Okay. Again, anyone got any questions or anything to get before we get started? If you want to make it as a reasons class, you are welcome to. I'm probably not going to be here so much to be able to listen to reasons or talk you through a lot on reasons. Like I mentioned earlier with Brian, that's something we could definitely maybe set up for another time. I'd love to coach you guys along with some reasons or working through questions. But tonight, just kind of learn how to evaluate hogs. And I always like to take notes on some classes just to help us get a better understanding of what we're looking at, and to focus in on our priorities. So I'm a big advocate for writing things down to help you understand some stuff too. So, all righty, here we go. First pig at class number 2. Again, we're gonna have to jump in with a color or an ID and a gender. If anyone's got a thought on that, feel free to jump in on it. See folks jumping in saying it's a calico barra. That's exactly what I'd call it. So I call it a calico, or I'd call it a clown colored barra. Okay. So again, calico sounds a little bit more impressive than clown, but when I'm just having a regular little conversation, we call it a clown colored barra, or the tri-colored barra works just as well. But I'd go ahead and write down, say the calico. So he's a calico and he's a barrow. Perfect. Okay, so again, a calico and a barrow. So first thing I'm looking, all right, cool. Gotta study him for his muscle shape. I'm gonna look there down his top line, there from behind, studying there in his blade and his shoulder. Kind of study that up. Go ahead and start taking your notes on how much muscle he's got and how lean that muscle shape is as well. Okay, so after I've really kind of gotten an understanding here on his muscle shape, I'm going to really study him. How much rib and capacity does that guy have? How much is he going to be able to take some groceries in him and be able to convert it into some lean muscle? I'm study him for a structural build. Definitely one thing I want to note as far as hogs go here late in the show world, we like to what we like to call them is like to call them short backed. So I definitely think this is a shorter bodied pig who's a bit more compact. It's not necessarily a bad thing, just something to note. And again, I'm writing notes right along with you guys, so I'm not asking to do anything that I'm not doing myself. Okay. Something I want to note on this pig too, that maybe we didn't see so much. This is a pig from much more modern pig, you could say. He's got a 2018 banner behind him, so that kind of gives you a reference of kind of the time frame of this guy. But you notice on his feet, he's got some pretty big feet on him. Okay. Some we like to talk about, we like to have some bone on our hogs. All right. They just absolutely will go through and kind of just share, kind of have just some more width and just add to the overall stoutness of the hog. Chloe, if you want to hop on, why don't you go ahead and share your initial thoughts of that hog? You can hop right on there and talk to us. You don't even have to use the chat. But I appreciate you asking. Go ahead and share your thoughts on this one, Chloe.
Okay. He has very nice full ribs. He has really nice ribs, and he has a very good flank. I like his flank area, and his legs look very strong. He doesn't look very tall. He looks like kind of a short pig. He doesn't look like he's like very, very tall, like the other pigs that we saw in the last class. He looks very, very.
Okay, very nice, Chloe. Very nice. Absolutely. Okay, Chloe shared some really good things. She did not say anything that was incorrect there. Okay. Instead of saying a little bit shorter and smaller, a cooler term to use is he's moderate. Okay, it's absolutely something to write down. This is going to be a more moderate hog. Okay, what I mean by that is he's not going to be great, big, tall framed or anything. Going to be a little bit on the shorter side. Not always a bad thing. Okay, I'll be honest. I've gone out and picked some more moderate type livestock to win a class or to win a division. I definitely think that's not something I'm afraid of, but for sure something to note that he is a little bit moderate. He's a little bit smaller in size, but absolutely super soft sided kind of bear. Got plenty of rib, really lots of fullness there down to his flank. And his muscle, I didn't hear say a whole lot about his muscle, but I would say he's got some muscle to him. Okay, so here we go. Moving on to number 2. Again, get an ID there for you. If anyone's got an idea what we're going to call this one for an ID, put it there in the chat box. White, absolutely. A white gilt, very good. Okay, got a white gilt here. Yorkshire appearing, very nice. Yes,
It's
I
a
would
Yorkshire.
Good job. It's absolutely right. It's a Yorkshire appearing pig. Okay. And the reason we know it's probably it's Yorkshire appearing is it's all white with no spots on it whatsoever. And it's got what we call erect ears. So the ears stand up. All right. Very good. Go ahead and start taking your notes, taking some understanding of where you like that pig, what you like about her, maybe what you change, kind of just starting writing some stuff down. Again, really studying her for the amount of true, genuine muscle she's got, how much dimension that one's carrying. Okay, again, going to be a shorter backed kind of pig. Again, a little bit more modern. She's got how lean is her muscle shape? How many groceries, what's her capacity going to be? How much can she intake? There through a rib. She have some look. Okay, I think this one, if you want to maybe note this, not to give it away here, but I think she's got some really long neck. Okay, when I talk about her being long neck, to talk about one that's pretty extended up through her front. I think it's just something that, again, we don't eat pretty. I preach that all the time, but at the end of the day, we prefer good looking hogs to not so good looking hogs. Definitely think it's a lot prettier and a lot nicer. Okay, when they got a big, long, clean neck. Okay. Now, Chloe nailed it on the last one. Does anyone want to kind of take a stab at kind of talking through this gilt a little bit? Happy to share. Happy to see who's got something.
I'll talk about her. She's
Right,
a
go for it.
soft-made gilt. Maybe gets a little bit shorter about her cannon bones compared to some of the other hogs we've seen. Get a little bit weaker about her pastern. Definitely has some power and some shape. She looks like she'd be busted open off either side of her skeleton. She's a stout skulled pig. One that maybe wants to get a little bit throaty up front, but has some extension.
Very nice. Okay, so folks, the person that just talked there, they have some experience with evaluating some livestock. Absolutely right. Talking about the cannon bone in there and stuff like that. So again, what they're talking about with cannon, going to be here from the hot to the pastern there, the amount of length. And usually that's a pretty good indication of how big that pig's going to finish out. So again, probably going to be one that's got a little bit shorter there in the cannon, but again, soft-sided, good-looking one that's going to be real busted open. I definitely liked a lot of things I heard there. But again, I kind of just thinking in my mind, all right, some notes that I wrote down. First thing I wrote down was stout. Okay, big-footed, powerful, got some depth and the dimension. So I didn't necessarily find anything super bad, if absolutely right. The young person earlier talking about a little bit weaker there in the pasterns. Absolutely right. Okay, something to note for sure. But overall, I think one that kind of have an idea where I want to put that one a little bit, kind of going into this. All right,
Ryan, Rylan, can I ask a quick question? When I look at this and I look at her, I almost think she's over conditioned, over, right? Am I thinking wrong when I'm looking at this? Is anybody else thinking that?
You are not wrong. Again, with the places to look, she's got a little bit of kind of that extra water, a little bit extra fat here. Again, these are pigs that we're kind of taking to the rail tomorrow. It's kind of how I'm evaluating and thinking about them. But as far as true muscle shape, you can see here in her hips, she's got a lot. Okay, we got a lot of muscle shape and a lot of power. Okay, and she's just got a lot of pieces I like as far as muscle goes. I would agree. She's got some condition. She's got some cover. I wouldn't be shocked here at State Fair of Texas if this one was running as a breeding gilt. All right, but again, one that I think if you really study her for her true, genuine power and muscle and dimension, she's got a lot of really great things going for her. But I do think you are absolutely correct in thinking, is that one a little bit fat? I think she's got some condition to her, but in comparison to some other ones, maybe not quite as fat or as chuffy as maybe we start to think. All right, next one. Sorry for the picture being a little bit blurry. When I did this class with my livestock judges, they were all reading me up and down for a blurry picture. But go ahead and read this next one if you know the breed. Okay, you can definitely jump in on that one. Duroc Barra, very good. I can pretty confidently call that one a Duroc. If you don't want to write Duroc, you can also say the Red Barra. So we got a calico or a tricolor, we got a white gilt, and we got a Duroc Barra. All right, just like we were doing before, go ahead and jump right in. Think about your muscle, okay? Well, we called it brown. We try and stay away from calling it brown. Again, we don't really call livestock brown. We tend to call it red. Okay, I don't know why. I like red, so I have no problem calling it that term. But yep, so again, we're talking about one that's red. Okay, very good. Go ahead and start thinking in and evaluating that one. About lean muscle shape, some rib and capacity. Do they have some look up front? Are they square and genuine in their build? Again, thinking about that one, taking some notes, looking at their hip, how much power are they carrying there from behind? What are they going to carry on the top side of their skeleton? Does this guy got some forearm there, some width there through his shoulder and his blade? How lean is that muscle going throughout? What's that rib shape looking like? Are they nice and soft? They got some depth and capacity there. Do we have those extra pieces? Do we have some extra extension up front? We got bone coming down at the ground. What are we thinking? Okay. And again, I've been yammering on, but again, you guys are doing awesome. If someone else wants to jump in, kind of talk about this red barra, happy to hear it.
Could I talk about her, please?
Go for it.
I don't have much, so if anyone wants to add on to what I say, feel free. She has very strong front legs. If you look at her front legs, she has very, very fatty tissue on her front legs. And she is set up very, very nicely. And I think that her flank is very fat too.
Okay. Very nice. So some big things I thought about, I'm actually going to disagree with you a little bit there, Chloe. I think this is actually a pretty lean pig when I look at it. And again, the picture's hard. I had to study one, and I've looked at a lot of pigs in my lifetime, so I'm able to read that and kind of understand a little better. But again, you look at the coloring here, the distinction there, as far as kind of looking from the tail here all the way back, look how much shape and power we've got up there through the ham. And then up here, same thing, kind of real dimensional and shapely up there. Kind of talked about looking like we got some fat up here. I think that's definitely something to note. I think this is a pig that's got enough cover and enough finish to it. I definitely would agree with that. Definitely right. Someone jumped in saying that's a really cool fronted pig. Okay. Again, one that's really tall at the point of the shoulder, that comes out with a really long and extended neck. Really appreciate a lot of things about that one. So again, I think this one is just really square, kind of got a good combination of muscle and leanness. I definitely think as far as the pigs we've seen, this red bear in comparison to this white gilt or this calico bear here, I think that's probably the leanest pig we've seen so far. And I'll be the first to admit, I really struggle using an EST. And I feel like I briefly mentioned that last week, but talking about one being the leanest, the heaviest muscle, the coolest fronted. Don't be a trend chaser, all right, in the sense of always looking for the EST pig or the EST steer or lamb or goat. Don't always look for the EST. But combination-wise, I think this one's pretty darn good. I like a lot of things about it, and I think definitely you could argue it is probably the leanest pig we've seen so far, but not necessarily in a negative way. Okay, not going to be so lean that it works against it. Okay, and again, that's going to be a Duroc Barra. Okay, a red Barra. The sheet's really hard to see here in this picture, but it's a Barra. I do assure you of that. Okay, finish up your notes there. We're going to roll on to number 4. Number 4. Okay, feel free to jump in the chat. What color is this one? And is it a gilt or a Barra? Very good. We got another blue-butted gilt. Okay, a blue gilt or blue butt gilt. Okay, same thing. Go ahead and start writing your stuff down. You guys are going to be experts at this in no time. Professionals. And start writing down your initial thoughts. What jumps out at you the most is usually the first thing you're going to write down. Really studying her for muscle shape. How lean is that muscle? Got some depth of rib, got some quality to it. What kind of things are we seeing? Okay, anyone want to jump in and share on this one? Brian, you want to take a stab at it? You've learned a lot, I know.
I could unmute myself when I was looking at this. So one of the things I'm looking at it as I look at the first thing that bounces out to me is the hips, right? Like the muscling back in the rear, the hip section on there, right? Like that's the first thing that I notice on her. To me, she doesn't have quite the rib, the fore and rear rib and the flank. She's not quite as deep. She looks like she's a little bit lean in the ribbing section for me when I look at it quickly.
Very good, Brian. Nice job.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I would say on the same thing, she doesn't have the muscle. Like if you look at the legs, I was going to say that with the rear legs, it looks pretty posty to me, right? When I say posty, I'm a dairy judge, like a fence post, right? Like she's posty. It just doesn't have that muscling all the way through.
Very nice. Okay, exactly right. Good job, guys. Good evaluation of it. So again, this is one that, again, she's got some power there from behind. That's kind of where we lose her a little bit. If you study this one in person, I can promise you she's going to have some width and curvature there to the top side of her skeleton. For me, again, we talk about structural wise. I think we struggle a little bit with this one. She's got a really clean and really neat front. She's super extended and really clean up there through her front end. I like that about her, but again, we don't eat pretty. Someone mentioned on here she's frail. That is absolutely something you should get on your notes if you don't already have it. And again, what frail means, frail is essentially saying she doesn't have a lot of bone, or the bone she does have isn't very big. She doesn't give us a very stout look at the ground. And usually big bone, stout skulled hogs tend to have a lot of width and a lot of power to them. So again, she's going to be kind of a straighter legged, frail footed kind of gilt. She's got some muscle to her. I think she's got enough rib. I appreciate Brian mentioned that maybe in comparison to some other pigs we've had, but as an individual, I think she's got enough to her. But again, a neat design as far as her look up front, the levelness down her top, but going to be kind of a straighter kind of gilt with his real frill at the ground. Okay. It's number 4. So again, I'll work back through them all from top to bottom here. Number 1, get your final notes on it. Okay, number 2. Final notes, final thoughts. Be getting your placings down. Number 3. Number 4. All right, go ahead and submit your placings there if you haven't already. All right, so here's what I'm going to tell you. A lot of folks are kind of all over the place on this one, and that's kind of the point of this class. I think there's a lot of different ways you can go. So I'll kind of go through and talk to you about what I like best. And if you disagree with me, that's exactly what you do in the reasons room, okay? Brian mentioned that previously when I was running to get my laptop charger, but that's exactly right. Sometimes we just run into disagreeing with the judge. We don't think they quite read them the same way we do, and that's okay. You know, different judge, different day. We've taken pigs that we thought were just a real humdinger, could win the whole thing, and they end up 4th in class. It happens. Different judge, different day. But again, studying the basic fundamentals, again, I think this is a class of hogs that I don't think there's truly a bad one in this class. I think there's a lot of different pieces you can pick and different ways you can go with it. But for me, and I know Brian's going to disagree with me here, I like 2 to start, guys. Okay. When I talk about one that's just really dimensional, really got a lot of awesome things as far as her overall design, you get that one off on the side. I think that's a really cool, sleek looking one. Who's got plenty of width there from behind and really get off on the side of her. She's really cool and extended there up through her front 1/3. Again, you can knock this one a little bit. She gets a little bit good job, Brian. You can get a little bit knock on this one. You know, she's maybe there right at the point of being almost too heavy in her condition. But for me, I think she's got just enough. She's not at tick past midnight just yet. One is just right on as far as her condition. Take her another couple weeks or another month. I think you're going to start having some trouble with that one. But again, I like that 2 gilt quite a bit. That white gilt's super fun. Really, really cool, really square, really dimensional. Just a lot of neat things to tie in on that one. I think one that has the most similar as far as the different types of pieces and design you got going. I think the Duroc Bear is a pretty easy way to lead into 2nd place. Again, I think that Duroc's definitely got some cool pieces. He's super tall at the point of his shoulder, really neat and is up-fronted. Definitely one that comes at the ground with some big feet and paws. One who I think, again, is really lean and dimensional in his type and kind. Really works a lot of shape and curvature there from his blade back. Definitely one who's not lacking at all as far as power and dimension as you get him to walk away from you. Again, one that I think is just really neat in his kind. Just for me, maybe doesn't quite have all the extra pieces and that wows you out of that white gilt. But like I mentioned before, you could argue with me all day long that he needs to start the class. And I'm going to tell you, you know what? That's definitely the way to go. You could probably talk me into that one. But I like a good red bear, and I think that's definitely a really neat one to fall into 2nd place. For me, I followed up in 3rd. A lot of folks like this one Barrett. For me, I definitely think there's a lot of neat pieces to like. We talked about him early. We talked about a lot of things we liked. He's super soft-sided, gives a really neat, easy feeding look. As far as how much power he's got enough to him, and he's super neat there up through his front 1/3. Real tall at the point of his shoulder. But for me, again, he just doesn't have those extra wow pieces, and I want one. I think there's just 2 in here that have those extra pieces, as well as just carrying a little bit of a leaner carcass. Talking about taking one that's a little bit trimmer there to the rail, I think this one's not quite going to stand up as well on comparison to those 2 solid colored pigs. But I do like the color and the look of this one. I think he's got some neat design. Just think this one's just a tick past midnight. And what I mean when I say that, it's just Mary carrying just a little bit extra bark or condition for me. But overall, in person, I think that'd be a really neat one to evaluate and really study. To round out the class, again, I think one who's definitely a carcass-oriented hog. Definitely got some power from behind. She's really got some width and dimension there from her hams. And her hip, again, I mentioned this one from the side, having a really cool, neat look. She's real level there from her blade to her hip, and I appreciate the extension she's got going up through her front 1/3. But for me, she just gets a little bit shallower there in her rib cage, and I would guess this one's going to be a little bit flatter once you get behind her. As far as studying the amount of curvature there to her rib, and one that I think just steps down at the ground a little bit straighter off both ends of her skeleton and just comes at the ground with probably the frailest feet in the class. Again, one that I think's got a nice carcass, but not going to be quite as dimensional and profitable in comparison to the other hogs in this class. Okay, so again, if you want to argue with me with that, you are more than welcome to. That you want to switch those pigs, I think that's fine. But again, I place this class 2, 3, 1, 4, with cuts of 3, 2, and 4. All right, here we go, folks. Okay, now our last one. Okay, so go ahead and set up your stuff for your last one here. Okay, now when we studied our last class of cattle, we called them prospect steers. Same thing here. We're gonna have prospect market hogs. So again, this is a little bit different. Okay, we're gonna put a little bit more emphasis on the structure and how well built these pigs are, because again, they're only weighing about 60 or 70 pounds in these pictures and these videos that I got for you, but we really got to make sure we got pigs that are doing right and are built good at the ground, and we're going to feed on some other things. So I'm not saying I ignore how much muscle they have, but structure is going to be more important than it maybe has earlier in those other classes. So again, set up your stuff there. You got 1, 2, 3, 4. Be ready to take notes. Okay. All right. Here we go. Number 1. And again, I'm not really going to give you a lot of guidance here. I want you to just kind of take what you've learned and rock and roll with it. But again, kind of a wider belted barra. Okay, and one thing that's neat, I actually have videos on these. So here we go. We're going to roll into that. Hopefully it all works out good. I'm not going to lie, I don't know what this whole YouTube short thing is now, so just bear with me on it. I'll tell you right now, all these pigs will be cute, so just prepare yourself. Okay, it's going to go ahead and play it again for you. All right, that was number 1. Here's number 2. Okay, gonna do the video on this one. Oh, now you want to be normal. Okay, we'll do that one again. Okay. Here we go. Number 3. Okay, we'll watch this video. I call him, and I'm gonna call him the Chrome Barra. Again, to distinguish him a little bit from, there's some other pigs in here. He's chromed up. So what we call that means he's got a belt or something, or he's just got some color elsewhere. He's got a kind of chrome color to him, we might say. It's being difficult. Ignore the random suggestions that it has on the side. I don't know what's going on with it. Okay, watch it again. Okay, and number 4. This is boom. Okay, we're gonna roll into the video this one. All right, one more time. All right. So kind of rolling here into, I'll bring everything back up. Go ahead and get your placing on if you haven't already.
Can you show us the pictures where they're just standing?
Yep. Let me get back to that. Again, number 1. Number 2. Number 3. Number 4. Okay, last chance to get your placings in. All right, here we go, folks. We don't have much more time, so I'm going to kind of rock and roll here. All righty, so for me to start out the class, I think there's a pair of 2 bears in here that definitely just carry some genuine quality from end to end. They got a neat look up front. When you watch them drive away from me, I think they both have some genuine build in their skeleton. Ones that I think just from the side give you a neat profile. For me, there's one that maybe just gives you a tick more genuine look from behind, just a nickel. A little more comfortable there in his rear too. And for me, that just comes out to be the Chrome Baron 3. When you get that one out on the move, that's where he impresses me the most. He's one who's probably the loosest and most free there from end to end on a skeleton, just getting him out on the drive. One that I think carries plenty of genuine muscle shape from end to end, carrying quite a bit of power at this stage in the game for a pig so young. Got some look up front. Again, I think some really neat pieces. And if you want to argue with me that the all black Barra that I put there in second needs to find his way to the 1 hole, I'm not going to disagree with you. I love this one for the front 2/3. I think he's super dimensional, really cool. Really study the picture of that one. I think that's got a super neat forearm, got plenty of shag working down through his front legs. Again, going to be a really cool looking one up front with a lot of neat look. But for me, when I get this one out on the drive, that's where he loses me a little bit. Again, I think he's just not quite as genuine from hot to ground. He just wants to close up a little bit behind himself. And for me, with a pair of pigs that are so close and tight, I think that's where you got to separate is you really got to study and evaluate the little things. But again, if you want to argue that that fella needs to go in the 1 hole, I'm not going to disagree with you too darn hard. Okay. From there, I think it's a pretty good split. I think we kind of come up with 2 pigs that are a little bit pretty close in as far as quality and kind. Believe it or not, I believe they're actually litter mates. I think there's 2 or 3 litter mates in this class. But I just like the extra easier feed and look there out of 1. I think that's one that not only is set in a little better from hawk to ground, he just gets out on the drive a little bit easier. Just doesn't absolutely wow you. As far as his width there at the ground, he's one that's supposed to close up a little bit there. Just doesn't quite have all the extra pieces and pizzazz that I need to move him any higher. But again, a nice quality pig to go there in third. For me, the one that rounds it out, I think his picture was just kind of rough and really set the tone for this guy. You can see he's carrying an immense amount of lean muscle shape there from end to end. And I'm not afraid of a lean, powerfully constructed one, but at this stage in the game, like I mentioned previously, I want to have a little bit more emphasis there in his structure. When you get this one really getting out and moving, absolutely right. He's just a bit frailer at the ground. That's probably gonna tell me the story that I'm gonna see on this one going throughout. I just don't think he quite has as much genuine build and design there in a skeleton. Doesn't get out and move as freely. One that I just kind of concerns me from a structural standpoint. And at this stage in the game, I really struggle with that. With a pig so light and so young, I'm interested to see where he goes further on down the line, but not one that I'm going to put a lot of stock in to find a hole in my barn just because of his structural integrity. But again, I go ahead and place these pigs 3, 2, 1, 4. I cut you 2 on the top, 4 in the middle, 2 on the bottom.
All
So-
right, Rylan, I have a question. If you look back at number 2,
Yep.
and I'm sure I'm not, because I'm seeing a lot of 2s that are doing this. So I look in his midsection and he just seems really loose to me. Like he's wiggling, right? Like, and you put him out on that walk, if you show the video on him, and if I look at him when he's walking, it just looks like he's just swinging, right?
Okay.
Like, and I'm like, what's that deal? Right? Like I hit him hard because if you just look at his belly, his midsection, it's just swinging. And I was like, I don't think that's right. It looks like he's almost got something going on there. So I think that's why I hit him, and I'm having a feeling I think that's why some other ones hit him. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Brian, I think a lot of what you're seeing on this guy and what I'm hearing from you is not something that's too terrible surprising to me. I think this is a guy that we get caught up, as I mentioned previously, the whole idea of the ESTs. You find one little thing that you don't like and you tie into it a little bit too hard. Again, he gives you a soft-sided look. For me, I don't think this one's quite as full. So if he had a full belly, had a big old drink of water, I don't think his belly would shake so much like that, like you're talking. But again, when we talk about livestock judging and evaluated livestock, we got to look at them as a whole. Okay. And absolutely right. They jumped in there saying they're prospects, so they shouldn't quite look like they're really going to be ready to go to market. Okay. Again, these guys only weigh about 60, 70 pounds. And believe it or not, if you're, a pig person and you're into maybe wanting to get a hog out of Kansas, all of these pigs are for sale on showpig.com right now. This isn't necessarily me advocating or not advocating for the guy selling these or anything. He's out here in Southwest Kansas. He's got some pretty good pigs as far as I'm concerned. But again, I get what you're saying, but you got to be careful of hitting hard on one certain trait. We got to really study him as a whole, complete animal. But I do appreciate you bringing that up. But again, overall, that guy's got a really cool look and really cool design. For me, I just didn't love that he was as closed up as he was from behind. And that was actually, and for me, that was a nitpicky small thing. But the reason I got nitpicky and small was because it was a close pair between the two for me. But great question. I'm glad you brought it up. So
Appreciate that, because that's what I was looking at. I was looking at him and I actually just dumped him because of that, right? I couldn't get over it. And I just put him right dead last because I couldn't get over that. And I think if I looked at the placings, it looks like I wasn't the only one that we were stuck on that.
Yeah. So you just got to be careful. You got to study him as a whole individual, not just get so hung up on one specific trait. But that is a very common thing, and that's gotten me in trouble before. At the national contest, I really messed up a class of market steers because I was just determined one of them was counterfeit, and I determined that one was just no good, and there was nothing wrong with that steer. Even as a judge, I'm almost 30 years old, been doing this for a while, and same thing. You get caught up on little things every now and again. So got to remind yourself, look at the whole picture, look at the whole animal. So, but right on. That's all I've got for you guys tonight. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it. Next week, I believe we'll do market lambs and market goats. So we'll kind of rock and roll through some stuff. So
very good. Well, thank you, Rylan.
No
so I will,
problem.
once I get the recording out, I'll put it up on YouTube. I'll send it to the person that puts it up on YouTube for us. Send it out to all of you guys that have seen it and look at it, and make sure you sign up for Livestock Pro. judging.com, and I will send you those directions again tomorrow. So
Thank you so much.
hope
I
you-
appreciate it.
hopefully you all learned something. I'm ready to go judge livestock coming from a dairy background, right? Like, so I hope the rest of you are too. And as you're starting to select your project animals, that deadline's coming up in another month in New York. I think this is a great opportunity. Thanks, Rylan. Have a great day, everybody, and enjoy the snow that we're currently getting. It's currently
Thank you.
sleeting and freezing
Thank you
right
so
in my house.
Yeah, you guys enjoy that snow. I'm gonna head out and go walk pigs and get some lambs tied up.
Stop.